staying upstairs. I don't know if this is exactly the dream right now, but I can see why the builder bought the land. Anything that's lakefront is going to be. Now, this is our...
Smell too.
I'm sure you do. It's Ponson, I bet you.
So in the wintertime, I had to move the manure out into the north pile, and then in the springtime, you had to go out and spread it out.
They still do, but also the pits are getting, more popular because the rules have gotten a lot stricter because of the Chesapeake and everything. The whole idea of intrusion into there's a lot of, yep. So even the Amish, a lot of them have manure systems.
Right, yeah.
Where they,
I mean, I don't know.
it might have been.
We're headed back to the hotel. What do you want to do?
Yeah, let's go.
Constellation is the second of 3 U.S. Navy vessels to carry the same venerable name. First, frigate Ronald Reagan called her America's flagship, but it was a standing war translation that's here in Baltimore today. He is here, God.
Your hands. All right. Now, for this gun in the quarter-pound charge, you only really have to cover your ears. If you're worried about long-term hearing loss, because the more your ears are exposed to loud noises, the greater your chance of hearing loss. I'm going to prime the gun. I'm going to warn the people on the pier that we're going to shoot. They don't let us fire it without telling them. I will then say ready, and then I will say fire, and the gun will shoot. Hopefully. If not, it's my powder monkey's fault. On the pier! I'm going to fire the gun. It's going to go boom. I'm not shooting at you. On the gun deck! On the gun deck below! I'm going to fire the gun at the bow, the pointy end! Move away! Now I've got to make sure there's no vessels in the way. They don't like us scaring big taxis. Alright. You notice I'm standing with my back to the gun. If there's a misfire or a bad explosion, it catches my skull, not my face. Ready? Fire! Alright.
Dude, from what I've learned on the ball, if you do it and you do it well, just write it up and then show it to them. Yeah. You know, I would.
You can see they're still restoring the constellation. See, the only person who got a bed was the captain. I guess it was wrong. Some other sailors.
It was steered. But if it's from
this wood here.
No, it's the building.
Yeah, they went all over the country. Oh, we're up and down the seaboard, eastern seaboard, looking for trees just so. Like this right here, again, one piece of wood.
Okay, now we're going to take our tour of Baltimore.
And he sent him to Ireland, and he gave him a manor of 10,000 acres in Northern Ireland called Baltimore. And that's how the name Baltimore came about. He made George Calvert the first Lord Baltimore. Now, I'm a Baltimorean, so I say Baltimore, but Baltimore is how most people pronounce it. I'll bet you guys from Baltimore say Baltimore too. If you've lived here a while, you would kind of forget the T. Anyhow, what happened was George Calvert had 6 sons. Old Henry couldn't have any, and if you remember history, he beheaded all the rest of the wives. The only one that he didn't behead was the first wife, and she raised Queen Elizabeth as well as Queen Mary. Queen Elizabeth was the daughter of Anne Boleyn. All right, then there were some others that he... Now, what happened, George Calvert went to Ireland and he raised these 6 sons in Ireland. George passed on, Henry VIII passed on, a lot of time came about and Queen Elizabeth took over, and then when she died, Charles I came into power. He was a guy that knew the Calverts well, knew they were not happy with the fact that they were living in Ireland, which they weren't, and they wanted to practice Catholicism. Well, he literally gave to the Calvert family the territory of Maryland from the mouth of the Potomac to the mouth of the Susquehanna. And that's how Maryland came to be. Maryland was named after King Charles's wife, Henrietta Marie, and they called it Marie's Land. All right. The coat of arms of the Calverts, someone asked me getting on, you'll notice my tie and you'll see the flag, the Maryland flag. The black and yellow, black and gold, is the coat of arms of the Calvert family. The red and white is the coat of arms of his wife, whose name was Crossland. So they actually were the coat of arms. The official Maryland flag staff has a papal cross on it. So the Calverts proceeded to come to Maryland in 1634, and the 3rd Lord Baltimore, Leonard Calvert, brought 2 boatloads of English Irishmen to St. Mary's City, which ultimately became the capital of Maryland. It wasn't a city, it was they landed there and made it a city. It still exists at St. Mary's College now. So the Catholics settled there. Now, they owned all the land, so they started they started to develop the land and sell it off, and that's how they made their income, okay? And as they sold it off, they would then, of course, reap the money, and they actually became the third Lord Calvert to come was Charles Calvert. All of the counties in Maryland are named after the Calvert family, or someone related to them. And of course, some of Virginia later on became part of Maryland. And out there we have some people from West Virginia. They made it West Virginia. And that was all part of this early history. Now, what happened was the Calverts then started to sell the land to wealthy English that came over. Most of them were Church of England, Episcopalians. So the Episcopalians settled Baltimore, basically. In the beginning, very few Catholics came this far north or came up into Baltimore. Now, I'm going to get back and we're going to now start to the city. I want you to notice off to the right, and I'm going to sit down so I don't fall down. Excuse me. All the trains from the north ended here prior to the Civil War. Abraham Lincoln came through here. President Obama gave a speech here before he followed the route of President Lincoln to Washington. Prior to the Civil War, you had to get off the train if you were coming from New York. Get off the train here, and if you were going to go west or south, you had to walk over to the B&O Railroad Station or take a horse-drawn trolley and get on the B&O, which was the only train to reach Chicago. Okay, it was the first train to the west, the only train to the west. Memorial to the 20,000 Polish leaders that were marched into the Casey Woods outside of Warsaw in 1940 by Stalin. By 1950, it dropped from 800,000 to 300,000. Look at the big building on the right. This is a recreation pier. We built it to calm the sailors down. My grandmother was the head of the Women's Christian Temperance Union, and she was involved in it. They finally got them to build it. It had recreation for sailors. If you look up to the right, you'll see tennis courts in the back. It has baths in there, and actually it had all facilities to kind of keep the sailors out of trouble. Now let's look at oyster shells. That's why they sang. Now the stones we were riding on were actually brought from Europe on the tall ships, and a lot of the houses were made of wood. In 1854 we had a bad fire, and that fire actually caused the city to put a moratorium on all wood being used on external surfaces of the house. No banner. That is a replica of the flag that was actually made in this little house here.
She couldn't keep it there, though. She had to take it someplace else and finish it.
I'll put my hat on again because a man by the name of Major George Armstead, wearing a hat like this, came right to that door, a little brown door here, knocked on the door, and a very attractive young seamstress named Mary Pickersgill lived there. He said, "The British are coming back." In 1812, he commissioned her to make a flag that size in this little house. Well, of course she did, but she ran out of space, and she finished it in the brewery behind the house. The Germans had arrived. Wherever the Germans are, you know you're going to have a brewery. So that's how the Star Spangled Banner got made. 29-year-old French general, good friend of George Washington. His son-in-law was the son of John Eager Howard, who owned a great deal of this property. John Eager Howard is on the horse down at the end of the mall.
They're back.
Yeah, they're back. Now, you notice these little monuments. We had the Maryland Institute College of Art, and we had a lot of sculptures. Beret, Hans Schuler. Most of these monuments were done by either Beret or Hans Schuler, who were fabulous sculptors. And actually, you look at the big house through the trees. All right. Now, on this side, I gotta get you to turn back again to your left, a hard left, because I didn't have time. Look back there. Okay. And on the corner is a monument to Edgar Allan Poe. It was rated as a fun. Well, he came up here to the University of Maryland Pharmacy School, and when he graduated, opened a pharmacy right there. Look up at the nest up on the wall up here. Look at the nest. And the egg back here, the Fabergé egg, fell out of the nest. And then you'll see a big violin. This is a bass violin made out of copper. As I told you, we have copper mines north of the city, so you'll see a lot of copper. Now, if you look past that, you'll see up on the hill, that hill collapses from time to time. Even now, it still has sinkholes. But actually, that's where they hid the slaves in that hill. The night or two before the trains arrived, and the free African Americans housed them in their houses over behind the hill, and then they'd bring them into the hill and hide them, and then the night the trains arrive, if you look out between these buildings over here, Armstead sunk old ships on each side of the fort, so in the channels, so the British all night long. So by morning he was getting tired, and he could see by the dawn's early light, he could see that flag still flying. So he took an envelope out of his pocket and he looked up and he watched this whole episode, and as he did, he wrote, "Oh, say can you see by the dawn's early light, that flag," only it was the big flag, "that flag was still there. Bombs bursting in air by rockets' red glare. You know, over the ramparts it waved." And that is the history and the story of the Star-Spangled Banner, and that is our national anthem today.
No. Chesapeake with a lighthouse. So this was a Coast Guard cutter that was there in Hawaii, in Pearl Harbor.
That's Foot Locker, I guess.
you see those two little
Yeah. That's what it is, huh?
Probably well suited, you gotta find those steps.
Yep. That's cute. Chill box.
Can't even see the, just show me the prison. Or who was it? Prison, it's a lens, a type of lens, begins with an F. Fresnel, lens, what is it called? Begins with an F.
Or is it right at the entrance of the bed?
It's
Garrett,
the, right at the
ready
entrance
to
of
join
Buzzard's
up?
bed.
This would be your bed and your. For the ocean or fathoms?
Federal Hill he was talking about, where they would dig caves and let the slaves stay. This is Fort McHenry, where the Star-Spangled Banner during the War of 1812 was created by Francis Scott Keyes. This is a statue of a Greek god that was given in memory of Francis Scott Key, who created the Star-Spangled Banner. I'm trying to put it together, or restore it again. We've got a little bit of a rainy day today. Glad we went to the harbor yesterday. Looks like this is what they're working on over here. This is talking about that statue of Orpheus that is now being redone.
At that time, 16 soldiers of the United States Corps of Artillery, the regular garrison of Fort McHenry, occupied this room. A single-story building in 1814, the second floor and porches here today were added in 1829. At daybreak, with the playing of reveille, The men ready for the morning inspection on the parade ground located just outside. The room furnishings are few, typical of military life in the early 19th century. 4 soldiers shared a bunk, on which their names and numbers are inscribed, while a sergeant had a separate bunk in a corner of the room. 2 circular gun racks in the middle of the room provided storage for their muskets and equipment, while a shelf on the wall was for the soldiers to store their uniforms, hats, and knapsacks. The wood trim, like the window frames, is painted yellow, denoting their branch of the service, the artillery. The fireplace at one end of the room provided warmth during cold winter months, and a place to prepare their daily rations of soup and bread. When the British fleet approached in September of 1814, in hopes of recreating their victory capturing Washington 2 weeks earlier, additional soldiers may have occupied this room. Crowded conditions indeed for the soldiers who would defend Baltimore and Fort McHenry from the British. Little would they know that within days of their great victory, their efforts would become part of our national heritage, through the words of Francis Scott Key. You are presently in one of the 6 rooms that...
Tim, look at the wood on this pistol. Or I should say this rifle. And look how long it is. You can tell it's like tiger maple.
What's in the room?
It's an exhibit about, well, most of it's out of order, but about some of the things they found when they were building.
Privies were also outside. With the arrival of the British Expeditionary Forces on September 11, 1814, officers of the Baltimore Fencibles, United States Volunteers, a militia artillery company, occupied this building. They were part of the 1st Regiment, Maryland Volunteer Artillery.
Yeah, that's quite all right. Well, Bree, here we are at Charm City Cakes. But you're right. They're open by appointment only. Good lunch.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen.
Long time no see.
Yeah, I've been around much. I've been around much. Okay, we'll spend a few minutes together. This is Columbus Day. Are you out because of Columbus or you're out because of other reasons?
Other reasons.
Holiday. Holiday. So you decided to come to Gettysburg. Good. So I'm Ranger Dave. I'm a part-time seasonal ranger, retired educator, and it's just nice now that I have the time I can come out and talk about Ike and Mamie a bit with you. We'll talk about them. You heard a little bit coming out in the bus. We'll just sort of carry on from there. But this is my hometown also. I'm a local yokel. And there's very, very few of us that are local anymore that are still out here doing whatever they're doing on the battlefield or Eisenhower Farm. I guess I'm the only guy that's local. But Eisenhower's decided in 1967 they were going to give this farm to you. So they did. And Eisenhower said just two things when he willed this to America. I hope my farm in the future can be farmed the way it's being farmed now. So then it was a Black Angus cattle farm. Today it is still a Black Angus cattle farm. So you will have the opportunity to see some of these cattle as you walk around here. I'll tell you more about them in a minute. But I think you'll enjoy this this trip here. I want to let you know a couple things before we start moving on. There are bathrooms underneath. Whoops! Restrooms. Restrooms underneath the barn. Some lady caught me on that a while ago. No, I can't get. I keep saying bathrooms and they're not bathrooms. They're restrooms. They're underneath the barn. There's a screen door past that sign on the side of the building. You just go in there. And also, all of you will end up in the reception center. Nice bookstore in there, displays, exhibits, some souvenir things. Walter Cronkite is on a videotape talking to Eisenhower. I used to have fun with this until a month ago or so when Walter Cronkite died. Before that I would say, Walter Cronkite's here today. And people say, oh? I said, yeah, on videotape. Talking with Eisenhower about his retirement here in Gettysburg. So I'd always catch somebody when I said that. And they say, oh, he is? But we can't do that anymore. But a good way to finish is to listen to this and view this video right in the middle of that building. 10 minutes. It summarizes everything you're going to see in here while you're walking around this place. So, as I said, this was all willed to you. Oh yeah, by the way, I always forget two things. One, let me tell you one thing first. You see that little sign on that fence there? That's a telephone thing. You can dial that number and stand there. For those of you who know how to do this, I never do it right. And if you have minutes and all that, I never do that either. But you can dial that number and hit that that sign's number, and then it'll give you more information. Like for example, it'll talk about that wired area there where Eisenhower had pheasant and quail in there, and he hunted here on the farm. It tells you that story. And there's about, I don't know, 16 or 17 of these right out there where you got off the bus. There's also one that talks about the orchards across the street there, across the driveway. They started talking about retirement, and then when they were talking about retirement, Eisenhower saw, and Eisenhower said, well, let's do a little repair on it, we'll move in. Well, one day a contractor came and started looking around, and there was an architect here looking around, and they said, General, the best thing we can do with this house is tear it down and start over. It's in bad shape. It originally was built in the 1750s as a log home. In the 1870s, they put brick up around the log home, and it began to decay from within because water kept running down between the old wood house and the new walls of brick. A lot of termites decided they wanted to come here and live in the house, and so it wasn't in very good shape. Take it down. Oh, Mrs. Eisenhower didn't like that idea. She said, we've got to save some of this house. So they did. When all this work began here, they tore the whole house down except this wall there with those two little windows up there and the rough brick. That is part of the old farmhouse. All the rest was torn down. Stone came in here because Eisenhower said, I really like the color of the rock around here. So stone, part of that house, was built, connected onto that kitchen I told you about that was completely remodeled, as you'll see in a few minutes, to a 1955 kitchen. And then all this smooth brick section of the house and all that Vermont slate on top all came to the tune of a little over $200,000. Oh my gosh. Eisenhower wanted to just do a little repair work and move in.
Okay.
Now, what was this place now?
Guest house. This is the guest house. And it used to be a garage for a small car.
Did well.
Oh, this side too, Gina.
Yeah.
Sure do.
Yeah, he sure had a lot of ribbons for his beef.
Winston Churchill here, the Golland deer. They're all up there.
There's some nice color.
Yeah.
On steak.
Don't talk to me that way.
Over here.
Do not talk to me that way. There's some of the fall colors.
And she said, and that's to you too.
Yes.
And walked away.
Yes.
So he took this pretty serious. Beautiful.
We're still working on this thing.
Talking about the bathroom. Historic bathroom. Let's head on out.
Okay.
Lead on. So that's the height of a Civil War soldier. 5'5", 5'6", maybe. I'm 5'8", and these fences all hit me at the shoulder. The quickest way to deal with them is not to tear them down, and they would not tear them down. They just go up and over. What if you go over 20 of them in a day? Even at 20, that's going to beat your butt to the ground. The only one. Everybody else hid in the basement and peed their pants. His name was, I would have peed my pants too. This fellow's name was John Burns, 70 years old.
Oh my God.
He runs out here, 70 back then is like 90 today. He runs out here and volunteers with Buford's men. Hey, give me an assignment. And they're thinking, oh my God, this guy needs a nap. You know what I mean? They're young men. So they say to him, you need a nap. Go home. It's not safe for you. And he said, I'll tell you what. I got my own gun. And they said, good, we'll get rid of him. He went to town to get his gun. Town's now 2.5 miles away from us. He ran all the way to town and ran all the way back out here. He shows up with a gun, they really start laughing because that gun is from the Revolutionary War era. It's older than everybody except for Robert E. Lee. And they're like, God almighty, this guy's serious. So they give him an assignment. They send him down to woods where we're going, and he fights with Wisconsin guys. There you go. Those Western ruffians, you know. And he gets shot 3 times in the left leg, and he survives the battle. His wife finds him out here the night of July 1st. And with a neighbor, drags him back to town, nurses him to health. And the men who originally made fun of him bought the statue in his honor, because they thought this guy's a pretty cool customer after all. He's the only civilian honor on the battlefield for his participation. One young man said, "Oh my God, that's those tall black-hatted guys. It's not the militia, it's the Union Army. We're screwed." These were guys who were like the Green Berets for the Civil War. So I thought you'd like to see that. We'll talk about the statues a little bit as we go down the hill. The pillar is gray limestone from Alabama. North and south, blue and gray reunited. The flame is an obvious piece of symbolism, of course. But also there are 2 ladies on the front. That's a northern lady comforting her southern sister. And at their feet, an American eagle. Now on federal land, and this is federal land, it's a national park, to show the eagle at rest, you need permission from Congress because he's our national bird. He's a symbol of our military strength. He's at rest up there because there's no reason we need to kill each other anymore. So he's not taken off. There's no need. We're not going to go attack our own people ever again. By the way, many years ago, we learned that President Kennedy had been here the year he was assassinated. Came on a tour, got out, and looked at the statue, and was fascinated with it. He was struggling with his international woes like all presidents do. And his wife said he walked around out here for an hour. And there are photos of him doing this. Well, when he left, of course, several months later, he was assassinated. And his wife was asked, and you've probably seen this picture of LBJ being sworn in on Air Force One. And there she is, and she has her husband's brains on her. She's asked by LBJ's press secretary, "What do you want your husband's grave to look like in Arlington?" And she thought about it, and obviously she's distraught, and she said, "Well, I don't know, but all he talked about was that peace monument at Gettysburg, so I want the eternal flame." And that's why it's there.
Oh.
I'm just taking a picture of the battlefield.
Come on, buggies. Stay away from me. This was one of the gems.
At rest. But think of it as an open shelf during the war. Well, this is what happened in the afternoon. Lee came in from the mountains where you see a red roof barn out there in the distance. And he was a little PO'd, to say the least. His men had fought, and he didn't want them to fight. They kind of sucked him into this. But he got excited because when he got here about 2 o'clock p.m. that day, he had 40,000 people with him out there. 10,000 up on this hill. And then in the valley to our left, another 10,000. If you drew and connect those dots, almost his entire army is here. The Union Army, the Northern Army, as you look across the road, you can see a row of statues, I think.
Yep.
They only have about 13,000 here. And he thought, I went on that big shelf of a hill in the distance, and the only thing stopping me is a handful of Union troops. But if you worked for him, and he told you this, he's going to try to do this big push, what would you say would not be the best reason to do that? What do you see in the way? What are the obstacles to your army? 29. This is one of the earlier ones. Gutzon Borglum, the artist, he always liked to sneak in a real person. And on this battlefield, you were not allowed to put a person's likeness on a statue unless he's a brigadier general or higher in rank. But he didn't want to follow the rules, so what he did, the man holding the flag, that's actually modeled after Orrin Smith. He's the man that designed the Confederate stars and bars. So he said, go ahead, make me take it off. It's in bronze. It's too late now. You notice the difference between this very classical looking one and then behind me against the woods, there's a statue to Tennessee, 1982. Most of the southern state monuments weren't even here when I was still in high school. They still were going through the process. There's a different feeling about this place than those other battlefields. You can see the fence problem out there. You know, the farm fences, how they're starting to multiply. The ridge you're looking at directly across from us is called Cemetery Ridge. Well, we're on a seminary ridge for the school. And they're parallel, just like the potato chip, as I was saying. You go to your far right, you see two sort of miniature mountains. The one on the left is cleared a little bit. That's called Little Round Top. It's about 4 miles away from us. Now, originally, the Union Army was stretched from Little Round Top to Cemetery Hill, which is where the woods are to the left, along the ridge. But when Lee and Longstreet were here, they couldn't see any of them. So they sent a couple of scouts to go up to Little Round Top and take a look. And the scouts came back and told Lee that there were only 2,000 Union troops right over the lip of the hill right in front of them. Nobody passed that red barn with the 3 white peaks on it. And Lee couldn't believe it. He said, wow, they must not have rushed up here from Maryland.
They couldn't see past that red barn then?
You couldn't see anything from here. But the scouts said, well, they're from the red barn to the woods. They're right over the lip of the hill. That's where they are. So Lee thought, if they've only got 2,000 fresh guys up there, let's jump on this. Here's an opportunity. Maybe we can get up there, and as south is to your right, as more of the Northern Army arrive, we could kind of punch them as they show up. You know, we get on good high ground and take them out. So he told General Longstreet, that's what I want you to do. Now, Longstreet's men are in the woods, in the mountains, in the woods, camping. That's 15 miles away from us. So they had to get here first. Then they were ordered to go down under the woods of the ridge and then kind of swing out and look like a big U-turn and hit the Union Army where the little red barn is and push the troops up the ridge to Cemetery Hill, take everybody off the hill, and they'd have the whole battle. But think about that commute. How fast do you think those guys could do?
This is the monument for Virginia. And supposedly it was cast by Tiffany's.
You'd call him a man's man. Lee was very aristocratic, as you probably know.
Now, the 1 foot in the air, was he killed?
Well, normally, here's the way it went. 2 hoofs up, they're dead.
Yep.
1 hoof up wounded, all 4 feet down. And for many years it went that way, starting in the 1870s. It's a cold day over there, if you're getting my drift. So he runs out there, he's all righteous. He looks up and his face gets as red as a stop sign. And he comes back and I said, well, what's the verdict? And he said, wow, is that a woman or what? And then he leans over to his older brother and said, they look like those ones out of Dad's Playboy that you stole. What we're going to do, if you want to pan directly at it, then we'll turn about up here. We used to be able to take the Boy Scouts, one thing they could do, an activity for their Eagle Badge certification, is we hike them up that hill. And one year I had them all down here, and I was telling them how we were going to do it, and 2 little boys behind me said, there's no way that old lady's going to be able to get up the hill. Well, at that time I was 48, and I thought, okay, I am on, you know, to them I'm old. So I said, you guys are dead men. For their men who were coming up here to attack, they put their snipers down there, their sharpshooters. Now, sharpshooter, that's a 500-yard shot from us to that. They could kill you at twice that distance in the Civil War already. But the people that stopped the assault on this part of the hill are right here. They're tweaking his nose.
You're in Pennsylvania.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Look at the whiskers. I love the whiskers.
We have O'Rourke Highway.
Yeah, we do. It's a whole new bridge.
We're sitting in the
And what's this? This is the 44th New York Regiment, another group of New Yorkers. They're from Albany. Capital.
Okay.
Some big bucks in that one.
Okay.
And the guy that designed it, he was very much a mathematician and a exact person. The monument's 44 feet tall, exactly. The base is 12 by 12, 144 feet square. But I wanted you to have this view because you can see. If we would have been out there and you were told you had to march 30-odd miles and get here and climb up this, you wouldn't even have went. You wouldn't have went, and they almost did it. You know, had it not been for O'Rourke here. Texas troops were up on the hill. They were very, very close.
Very close.
Also, a man wrote his wife a letter from up here, and he was looking out at the valley. And it's pretty. I mean, you can't get away from it. The Southern Army was in a line a mile long. In other words, if you look out at the woods, as far as you can see to the left where that red barn is, if you draw a diagonal line out, that was one end of them. The other end is where the housing development is. Their mission was to converge and split the Union Army in half. So if you're a young man up here in the Northern Army, you would see 13,000 men coming right at you. And indeed, they actually broke over the wall right in the corner. Let's come up and see the California.
This was the California
Every cannon up
monument.
here can shoot at least a mile to 2 miles beyond the woods. They were just blasting straight away into them. A lot of the men in this regiment wrote
is the
in their
last day of
diaries.
battle.
One man in particular, I remember, a man named John Clough. He said, as they were coming toward us, I had my gun up and I was aiming, but my vision was blurry. He didn't realize what it was. He had tears in his eyes. He was watching. He said, "How can you shoot a guy that comes towards you like that?" But you had to, you know. It's us or them.
Just walking in lines, probably just to...
Rocking around, you would just see them coming right at you, and they got narrower and narrower, and they got up over that wall right in the corner. We call that the bloody angle on the battlefield. But it was not enough.
This is the battle that the South, at the end of this day of battle, they had lost so many people that this, even though it went on for another year or so, this was the end of the Civil War. Now we're going to go to a pub, and this is a roundabout, which in California we don't see all that often. There you are, Gene. Got ya.
Yeah.
Now here's your patio, and and this is your sitting area. Okay, and then the kitchen over there. Well, see, then these homes are only maybe, what, 4 years old?
Well, how old are the rest of the homes? Jean, you've been
This-
here for...
Okay, Mother was here in 1988.
Oh, then these
And
have
that
been
was the
around.
first unit. Then the
Okay.
cluster housing went in. And this was started 4 or 5 years ago. And I believe Beth was one of the first people.
First
That's
one's
my
about
neighbor.
5 years old.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
And I've been here 3 years.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay. Yeah, it's nice having that sitting area right around all of the homes. What else is nice, Jean, is that, having a two-car
couldn't hear
garage.
you.
No, very nice, Jean. But this is beautiful.
Used to be on display at various museums.
All
And when
right.
I moved, I sold about 11 or 12, and I still have 15 left. And that's what these are.
And these are oil-cut glass, is what you're telling me. So how did you get started into that?
Just an interest.
Wow.
And it's funny, I collected the glass. My husband used to like to talk about them, and everybody thought it was his collection. Room. And then this is where you do your clothing wash.
Oh, really?
Yeah. I have
Okay.
a full washer.
So you
and
have everything
full
in the
dryer.
master bedroom. And
Yeah.
see, what I notice is that you don't have any lips you have to go over
No.
when it comes to using the shower, which is very popular right now. And
I
very
prefer
important.
a bath though.
Do you really?
Yeah.
Pictures have faded and you can't
Yeah,
get them.
that was from the sun.
I think
Yeah.
you can get them.
Well, some of them they say were too far gone, didn't you? Because you took
Yeah.
them, didn't you, Jean?
I took a couple over
Oh,
and
did
they
you?
said
But
they
you
were
must have
too
the
far.
slides somewhere.
I know, in the,
In the
anything
50
happens
million
to me,
collection.
this is filled with helicopter pictures. I mean,
We'll work
film.
on that. We'll work on that. That'd be fun. That would be fun to do.
Well, Jean, how did you ever get into wanting to do this?
My husband was interested in aviation, and I just followed along, and I figured if I'm going to be in the airship with him, I want to know how to get down. So we checked out in single engine land first. Then I went on to take seaplane flying up at Harvey's Lake with Ike and a couple other fellas. And then we got into helicopters. We bought a helicopter from a friend of ours, and everybody learned to fly on the helicopter.
Yeah.
Number 32 whirly girl in the world.
I was the 30th.
Yeah.
And then they bumped me and put her ahead of a couple of us, and that moved me back to 32.
Well, how can they bump you?
Yeah, that's what I was
And
wondering.
there's 1,500 of the women now
Yeah.
Wow.
in that short period of time.
Yeah, a lot more. Well, and I would take it as a compliment that
She was
we
fun.
have pictures of your family here on the same spot
Yeah.
as we have the helicopters.
Right.
Jim and Jean definitely were part of the family. I don't know two other people, that would come out on Christmas night, Christmas Eve, and stay until 3 or 4 in the morning to put up a swing set outside
Oh, I know. That's what they
like
did.
minus 10-degree weather,
Ah,
and then leave and come back for Christmas dinner around noontime.
It was fun.
Or come to every of Ryan's baseball games that they were available for, sit in the cold and the heat. Or sit in the track meets where we had no idea what was going on, did we? For Keith.
There's Jim again right here too. At Temple University.
Yes.
Played football.
Ah.
And you didn't want to get in Jim's
That's the kind of
way
fish we used to catch.
because you'd be in Temple Hospital for a while.
Jean had the brown hair,
Right.
but just think to be.
No,
don't do that.
There's Gene right there. There. And this is the front of Gene's house. This is our last day, and boy is it raining. And all I can tell you is it's okay because we're getting on the plane at 1:30. But what was beautiful weather for this whole time has now turned into the weather we anticipate. So I'm glad we got to visit and do the things that we did.